Just before the video begins, please subscribe and like the videos to help the channel grow. Also leave a comment, good, bad or indifferent. Thanks for watching.
Kurt ever got a new guitar, he would just get infatuated with it, and there's like 10 songs right there. And it was compelling. He was compelled to do it. Because he didn't like chores. He'd never do like, if it was a chore, he'd have nothing to do with it.
On the 11th of January 1992, Nirvana performed on Saturday Night Live. Earlier that day, the band had been to a photo shoot, but Kurt was so high he kept falling asleep while standing. Their album Nevermind had become a massive hit, knocking Michael Jackson out of the #1 spot. It would stay in the charts until July 1993. The band's first album, Bleach, had failed to make any serious album sales despite positive reviews. In the following months, Sub Pop would re-release Bleach remastered with a bonus booklet with pictures of the band from 1987 to 1990. On stage, Kurt appeared with dyed red hair that he hadn't washed in a week. He gave the impression to care very little about his appearance, and in interviews claimed to despise the exposure his band received. Yet he obsessively planned every move in his life, writing down plans in his journals years before they'd be executed. After the show, Kurt skipped the cast party and retired to his hotel room with his fiancée Courtney Love. Inside the dishevelled room, clothes filled the floor space and plates of half-eaten food filled the tables. A window was left open to air out the smell. This was not uncommon. Every hotel room the pair stayed in ended up in the same state. When Kurt's mom had once visited them in a hotel they were staying, she asked Kurt, why don't you get a maid in here? To which Courtney replied, he can't, they steal his underwear. A month later, Kurt and Courtney decided to get married in Hawaii. Dylan Carlson was flown in to be Kurt's best man and was also told to bring along some heroin. Dylan had never met Courtney before, and though they liked each other, both believed the other was a bad influence on Kurt. In April, the couple went to Seattle to find a house they would live in. While in Seattle, Kurt came across a record shop selling bootleg Nirvana CDs and seized them all. Not long after, Kurt did an interview for Rolling Stone magazine. In it, he talked about his early years. He told the interviewer something in the way was written about the time he'd spent living under a bridge. At this time, there were tensions in the band. Kurt originally had agreed each member get equal share of the royalties, but this was before Nevermind blew up and sold millions of copies. He now decided a 75-25 split was fair, with him also receiving 100% of revenue for the lyrics. He also wanted this new negotiation to be backdated, and though Dave and Chris agreed to the deal, they felt betrayed. Royalty checks soon came in, and heroin dealers overcharged Kurt knowing he would pay. Nirvana headlined the 1992 Reading Festival. The lineup included the Melvins and Mudhoney, but the 60,000 in attendance had come for Nirvana. Rumours and gossip circulated Kurt was in poor health. Fans worried Nirvana would not be able to play, or if they did, what state Kurt would be in. As the fans watched the opening acts, word soon spread Nirvana would be a no-show. When it rained, the crowd greeted Mudhoney by throwing mud at them. Kurt, aware of the rumours, decided to appear in a wheelchair wearing a white wig. Chris took the microphone declaring, "This is too painful," as Kurt was wheeled out. As Kurt neared the mic, Chris added, You're gonna make it, man. With the help of his friends and family, he's gonna make it. Kurt slowly rose to his feet using the microphone as support and began singing "Some Say Love is a River" before falling backwards onto the floor. After a few seconds, Kurt stood up, grabbed his guitar from a roadie off stage, and the set began. Later in the year, Nirvana performed at the MTV Music Video Awards. Backstage before the show, Kurt was sitting with Courtney, his newborn baby, and a nanny. Axl Rose, the lead singer from Guns N' Roses, walked by with his girlfriend, and Courtney shouted, "Hey Axl, will you be the godfather of our child?" Axl ignored Courtney, but turned to Kurt and threatened to take him to the pavement if he didn't shut Courtney up. Kurt was amused and sarcastically ordered Courtney to shut up, to which everyone in earshot began laughing. Axl and his girlfriend then walked away. By October, Kurt had painted the cover of his next album and was working on the liner notes. After going through many drafts, Kurt's final liner notes read, "If any of you in any way hate homosexuals, people of different colour, or women, please do this one favour for us. Leave us the F alone. Don't come to our shows and don't buy our records." The album was a collection of B-sides, outtakes and covers. It was originally going to be called Cash Cow for obvious reasons. The album contained both Dave Grohl and Chad Channing along with 2 other drummers. 10 days before Christmas, Incesticide was released. The album was met with positive reviews and, considering the lack of promotion, sold very well. For Nirvana's next album, a few different titles were considered. The first idea for the title was "I Hate Myself and I Want to Die," but through fear of possible lawsuits, the title was changed to Verse Chorus Verse, and then finally In Utero. The word In Utero was taken from a poem Courtney had written. Kurt and Courtney had, over time, began writing songs together. Songs like Heart-Shaped Box and Penny Royalty's roots can be traced back to collaborations between the pair. They thought alike, and where Courtney helped Kurt lyrically, Kurt helped Courtney melodically. Kurt alludes to this in the track Milk It. One of the verses reads, "We feed off of each other." The topics of the album In Utero were centered around Courtney, Kurt's dad, and his daughter Frances. Heart-Shaped Box was a reference to a gift Courtney had previously gave to Kurt. The song was originally titled Heart-Shaped Coffin, and early lyrics read, "I am buried in a heart-shaped coffin for weeks." Radio-friendly Unit Shifter was originally titled 9-Month Media Blackout, and All Apologies was originally titled La 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 La. The intention from the beginning was to move as far away from the sound of Nevermind as possible. Kurt turned 26 years old during the making of the album, and the record was finished in half the time Nevermind took. Kurt penned some liner notes for Dumb, describing his hate for marijuana. They read, "All that pot, all that supposedly unaddictive, harmless, safe reefer that damaged my nerves and ruined my memory and made me feel like wanting to blow up the prom." The liner notes were never used. Kurt later admitted to friends the images from the video Heart-Shaped Box were taken from his dreams. In mid-1993, Neil Carlin for the New York Times visited Kurt's house to interview Courtney. Kurt answered the door and told the interviewer Courtney wasn't home, and the two sat on the sofa waiting for her. Kurt flicked through channels on the TV until he stopped at Beavis and Butthead. As they sat watching the MTV cartoon, Carlin stated, "I grew up with people like that." The video for Smells Like Teen Spirit came on, and Kurt eagerly awaited the verdict from the two teenage critics. As the opening riff began, Beavis enthusiastically shouts yes, followed by Butthead stating, "This kicks butt." Kurt felt honoured and in a flattered tone said, "They like us." Courtney arrived home and the 4-hour-long interview began. Courtney talked about the book Carlin was writing on the band Babes in Toyland, while Kurt pondered on whether it was punk to buy Leadbelly's guitar. After that, Courtney went on about the history of punk, and Kurt retired to his room before falling asleep. Carlin ended up staying the night in a spare room. The next morning, with no food in the house, the three ate sugar cookies for breakfast. In September, Nirvana attended the MTV Music Awards and In Bloom won Best Alternative Video. When they accepted the award, Chris carried Kurt to the stage on his back and gave a quick acceptance speech before leaving. Backstage afterwards, Kurt was asked what it was like to win the award. He responded telling the interviewer he already had two at home and he kept them in each toilet of his house. That same week, Kurt and Courtney played together at the Rock Against Rape festival. It was the only time the two ever appeared on stage. First, Courtney played doll parts and Miss World. Then Kurt took the stage and they sang Penny Royalty and Where Did You Sleep Last Night. The song ended with Courtney saying, "Thanks a lot, Sonny and Cher." A few weeks later, In Utero was released and shot straight to #1. Walmart and Kmart refused to promote the album, objecting to the song Rape Me. This upset Kurt. When he was a kid, he'd gone to Walmart to buy albums and always dreamed one day his own would be there. He stated, "I want kids to be able to buy this record. I'll do what they want." Copies of In Utero were printed with Rape Me changed to Waif Me, and kids could buy In Utero at Walmart. Later that year, two new members joined the band, cello player Laurie Goldston and guitarist Pat Smear. Nirvana began the In Utero tour and Kurt obsessively read the reviews for each show. During the tour, Kurt was driven to meet one of his idols, William S. Burroughs. A year earlier, the two had collaborated on a title track, The Priest they called him, though this was done by sending tapes back and forth and the two never meeting physically. When the two met, Kurt was very shy. Burroughs gave Kurt a painting and Kurt handed over a signed biography of Huddie Ledbetter, Leadbelly being both men's idols. Burroughs described Kurt as fragile and engagingly lost. He also added, "There's something wrong with that boy. He frowns for no good reason." As the tour continued, Kurt's mood picked up. He enjoyed playing the In Utero material and the Meat Puppets opened several shows. By the end of 1993, Kurt's estimated income after tax was around $2 million. That's the equivalent to $4 million in 2023. In November 1993, Nirvana flew to New York to begin rehearsals for the recording of MTV Unplugged. Kurt was very nervous about the performance. The thought of an entire acoustic show filled him with fear. He was also adamant he didn't want their set to sound or look like all the others. Kurt wanted the stage to be decorated with stargazer lilies, black candles, and a crystal chandelier. When a producer asked them, "You mean like a funeral?" Kurt replied, "Exactly, like a funeral." As rehearsals began, MTV were immediately unhappy with both the amount of covers that would be performed and the Meat Puppets being the choice of guests. Despite the intention of an acoustic-only performance, Kurt plugged his Martin D18E into an amplifier. The amp was covered with a box, but you could clearly hear the amplification in songs like The Man Who Sold the World and the effects pedals on Come As You Are. On the day of the show, Kurt was nervous. He ate Kentucky Fried Chicken and told an MTV staffer, "Can you make sure that all the people who love me are sitting in the front row?" He He also requested some fretboard lubricant. He'd never used it before, but wanted all the help he could get in this performance. He also said, "Can you ask the crowd to clap even if I don't play well?" That morning his legendary stomach problems were causing him trouble, and he filled out a doctor's questionnaire. He noted his favourite flavour as raspberry/chocolate and his least favourite flavour as broccoli, spinach or mushroom. For his favourite meals made by his mother he wrote roast, potatoes, carrots, pizza. His favourite food was Taco Bell and thin crust pepperoni pizza, and his least favourite Indian food. When filling out the question regarding physical activity, he simply wrote performance. The first 2 songs went well, but before Kurt began The Man Who Sold the World, he proclaimed, "I guarantee I will screw this song up." He didn't, nor did he screw up the remaining songs, and to say the set was successful would be an understatement. It was the greatest performance of any MTV Unplugged and of Kurt's career. When Kurt left the stage, MTV producers wanted an encore, but there was no way Kurt could top his last song, and he knew it. The group congratulated Kurt on a great performance. As he arrived back at his hotel room, he stated, "I was really good tonight, wasn't I?" In January 1994, Kurt and Courtney moved into 171 Lake Washington Boulevard. Their home cost them just over $1.1 million, and their mortgage payments came to $7,000 a month. Their next door neighbour was the CEO of Starbucks, and the house was right next to a public park, which therefore meant fans could congregate nearby. The property was 3 stories high with 5 fireplaces. The house came with a separate building which contained a garage and a greenhouse above. Kurt spent a lot of time playing guitar in a closet just off the master bedroom. Their food shopping consisted of Totino's mini frozen pizzas and Mary Calendar pies. When Courtney insisted no drugs were allowed in the house, Kurt began checking himself into cheap rundown hotels in Aurora Avenue, an area known for crime and drug use. He stayed at the Close Inn and his favourite hotel, the Marco Polo. After Kurt's death, the MTV performance that had cemented his genius was released as Nirvana's final album. The shock of his death could briefly be numbed with memories of Kurt's finest hour.